Hi, welcome to the 11th section of the SwiftUI course. Today I want to show you how to create a modal transition that is built in and that is also adaptive for the iPad. And then we're going to use data to fill the rest of the cards, and we're going to take care of the layout. Okay, so to create a modal transition, it's super simple. You just need to wrap your element inside a presentation button. So we're going to type presentation button. You can use the auto completion, and then parentheses, curly braces. We're gonna put the course view inside this. Then let's delete this space. Now for the presentation button, inside the parentheses, you can set the destination and use any view to set what screen that you want to go to. In this case, we're going to set destination. Don't use the auto completion because we have a bunch of other stuff that we don't want. So we're going to type destination, colon, and then we're going to use the content view for now. So that's it. And if we play this, you're going to see that it creates the modal for you. Now, what is interesting about this modal is one, it works for the iPad. It creates a modal with a lot of spacing on the left and the right side. I'm going to show you very soon. But secondly, it has a built-in gesture. It is also important to know that in my beta, I cannot tap twice. So if I summon it once, it won't work again. So I'm going to have to restart this to test it again. And maybe in your version of the beta, it's going to be better. But for now, this is what you have to put up with. So again, we summon this and you have a really nice gesture. Right now, we have to deal with the problem where when you use a button that wraps around your element, it tends to use the tint for the images. So just the same way with icons, it's going to tint your icons automatically. So what you need to do is you have to go to the place, so the component where you're gonna find the image, and then we're gonna have to customize our image and add some modifiers. I'm going to put this on another line, and then I'm going to bring a image rendering mode. This is the one that we're looking for. And then instead of setting to template, I'm gonna set it to original. And voila, it fixes our issue. Awesome. Now let's use some data and we're gonna fix issues as we see them. As we previously learned, we're gonna set the data model first. So here I'm gonna type struct course column using identifiable. And then I'm gonna set the ID is equal to UUID parentheses. So that's the default value. I'm gonna type var title is of type string, var image also of type string. And then I'm going to also set the background color. So I'm going to name it color, and this one is of type color. So the structure of your data model doesn't have to just be about string. It can be a number, it can be a color, it can be an image, anything you want as long as it has a type. As a fourth variable, we're going to set the shadow color. This is also going to be a color. All right, so now we're gonna set the data. So let courses data is equal to square brackets. And then on each line, we're gonna set the data model, which is course, parentheses, and then we can use auto completion to fill what we need to fill. In this case, we're gonna set the title. We're going to type build an app with SwiftUI. The image is going to be illustration 1. The color, we can use our style guide using the color with parentheses and set to background 3. The same for the shadow. So color, parentheses. Make sure that you have this parentheses and then the end parentheses. This is one of the key mistakes that a lot of people make, is that they don't take into considerations the surrounding parentheses when they create new parentheses. So yeah, we have color, parentheses, and an end parentheses for the whole data model. Here, I'm gonna set background shadow 3. Obviously, we have the comma, and then we can create a new data model. I'm just gonna copy and paste from my content, and I suggest that you do the same, especially when you have a lot of stuff to type. So you can just copy and paste from my code that is situated in the text area of my course. So I'm going to replace the entire thing, including let courses data and then the square brackets like this. And now it's neatly organized. This is what I suggest as well, is to try to organize your code to make it readable like this. Even better if you have a lot of troubles with these opening and closing. So what you can do is put the content on its own line, and then the parentheses opening and closing at the end and beginning like this. And then finally, we can use the auto indent. So Control I, and now it's going to indent everything for you. Yes, we have more lines of code, but at the same time, it's super flexible, super readable, and then you don't have troubles with opening and closing new parentheses that may affect the errors of your code. All right, so we're gonna use the data. We're gonna go to, at the very top, we're gonna write here var courses is equal to courses data. And then instead of using these values manually, which simply repeats 3 times, we're gonna use courses, and it will automatically set whatever number of items that we have in our data. In this case, we have 2. If you resume this, you're gonna see 2 results. So as you can see, we have 2 records, and we just need to customize our component and then pass the data model to our component. So we're gonna click here, jump, then we're gonna create variables for our component. So right after view, in the first curly brace, before the body, I'm gonna put var title is equal to double quotes. Let's set the default value using this right here. If you're lazy to type it from scratch, you can just cut it from here and paste it right here. And then we can replace it with the title right away. We're gonna do the same with the image. So I'm gonna cut here, and then var image is equal to, and then paste. And then replace image. Let's do the same with the colors. So var color is equal to, cut this, put color, and just paste it right here. Var shadow color is equal to, cut this, paste it here, and replace the value shadow color. So now we have dynamic variables that can be replaced when we call this component. So the course view component, now I can start typing title, and now I have auto completion, and I can just replace them with the course's data. Starting with item dot title, item dot image, item dot color, and then item dot shadow color. And then voila, we see the results of our data. Now we do see some troubles. For example, the card here is not taking the full width. So we're gonna need to make sure that the content inside the VStack can also take the full space horizontally. First of all, let me just indent my code. Now we have 2 elements, the image and the text. Sometimes the image is too small, so it cannot take the full width that we want. In that case, we should have a constant frame. So right after rendering mode, I'm going to add a frame modifier. I'm gonna set it to 246, just like the container frame, and I'm gonna set the height to 200 so that it's bigger, but also right now it's centered. By default, the image doesn't scale with the frame. So what you can do is make the image resizable. So I'm gonna put image resizable right here. The problem with image resizable is that it does not scale well in terms of aspect ratio. So we're gonna have to add the aspect ratio. So aspect ratio, and we have an error. So as I mentioned before, the ordering is really important. So it seems like rendering mode needs to be before the aspect ratio. So I'm gonna have to put aspect ratio after, and now it's fine. The other problem that I have is that, I don't want this to be a fill thing. I want this to be fit. But now my image here is too big. This one is kind of the correct size. So what I can do here is just to add a padding that is consistent. So I always want to have like a 30 padding from the bottom. So at the very end, I'm going to put padding, and it's going to be from the bottom at 30. But I can see that my image is getting a bit too big, especially with the padding, and it's pushing my text. So what I can do is making it a little bit smaller, and therefore the image here is kind of similar in terms of size to this one in terms of ratio. There's a second problem that we see here is that the text doesn't seem to have a padding that is consistent. This one seems to be larger and this one seems to be smaller. So the problem that we have here is that the frame is manual, is fixed. And when you do that, sometimes depending on the content of the text, it's going to center within. So the solution that I found was to simply not use a frame. And then you can see that the padding of 20 is really consistent across both text. And then we can just use the padding from the right to set whatever space that we want from the right. So now I can just do padding, parentheses, trailing, maybe we can set it to 50. And this is actually a better method, because if you use this component as a card and you need that card to be, let's say, way larger, then your fixed size text is not going to be appropriate anymore. So using padding is actually a better method, because now it's going to be a lot more adaptive. Let's conclude this session by fixing the spacing and the gaps. So I'm going to go back at the top, and here for the H tag, I'm going to set parentheses and then put spacing of 30. This is going to set a gap of 30 between the cards. And then we can set an additional spacing by using the padding on the H tag. So when I click here, you can see where it ends. And then from here, I can just put dot padding. I can set leading, so from the left to 30. Let's just make our code a little bit cleaner. So I'm gonna put this in another line for each of them. Let's preview this. And so we have this custom data, but also when we click here, we have our presentation modal. The design is getting pretty close to what we want. We're gonna need to set up the titles, and also in the next session, I wanna show how to create these beautiful background blur. So I'll see you in the next session.